The first encounter with Lafia happened in a banal way, on a cold night, when they both turned a corner distracted and bumped their heads. They fell together, apologized almost at the same time, and in that simple instant, Belle was completely captivated. Her red hair, long down to below her waist, seemed to shine even before dawn. Her pointed ears betrayed her elven origin, and her delicate features combined beauty and approachability. The most striking gesture, however, was the naturalness with which she held his hand as she stood up, direct, without formalities, free from the rigid customs of the forest. The innocent smile was enough to make him blush and fuel an almost childlike fantasy, the image of the gentle elf from fairy tales, the one that existed only in the stories he heard from his grandfather. This illusion, however, was short-lived. It only took Lafia asking about Ace for everything to crumble. Her devotion to Ace was too intense, overwhelming. The graceful elf gave way to a relentless guardian, and Belle found himself embroiled in a desperate chase through the city. On that day, which was supposed to mark the beginning of his secret training with Ace, he ended up fleeing from a level 3 elf while barely maintaining his level 1 status. Even fighting harder than he had ever fought before, he only managed to escape through pure instinct and luck, reaching the wall where Ace awaited him. This episode was not an isolated case. From then on, unexpected encounters with Lafia began to repeat themselves, almost always accompanied by chases, shouts, and apologies.
In front of the gates of Babel, an inexplicable rivalry arose.
On the 18th floor of the dungeon, after an embarrassing accident, came another endless chase. Later, near the pleasure district, an even more absurd mistake caused a potion to fall on her head, resulting in yet another chaotic escape. Looking back on all of this, Belle realized with some discomfort that a large part of his memories with Lafia were marked by running for his own life, memories he had tried to bury. Despite this, they weren't strangers. On the contrary, within the Loki familia, Lafia was one of the people Belle had interacted with the most, after Ace and Tiona. So, when she appeared before him that silent night and asked, in a firm voice, to borrow his strength, Belle felt the weight of everything they had lived through. Looking at her under the moonlight, he realized that something had changed. Not only in her, but also in him. Both had been shaped by battles, losses, and difficult choices, and that moment didn't seem like a simple reunion, but the inevitable beginning of something much bigger. Lafia remained calm as she extended something towards Belle, contrasting with the whirlwind of memories that still echoed in her mind. The object, a deep red with an almost ethereal glow, turned out to be a special piece of clothing, accompanied by a battle cross engraved with runes. She explained that it was a protective fabric developed by the Academy, woven with the mana of various elemental spirits. This equipment was not just a gift, but a requirement for the upcoming rescue operation, something indispensable for surviving what was to come. The name of the professor in charge, Leon, came as a shock. Lafia's familiarity with him raised an immediate question, and the answer came without hesitation. Until 3 years ago, she had also been a student at the Academy. This shed new light on her demeanor and knowledge. She was not just a talented elf from the Loki familia, but someone shaped by an institution that trained exceptional adventurers. Hermes' words about the great names coming from the Academy made sense, and Belle realized that Lafia carried a much deeper past than she had imagined. The conversation, however, soon veered towards the most delicate point. Faced with the awkward silence, Belle asked why she was there. Lafia answered directly. Besides delivering the equipment entrusted to her by the professor, she needed to ask for help. When using the word abandon to describe her separation from Ace and the others, her voice remained firm, but the weight of that choice was undeniable. She offered to tell everything she had seen and done on the 60th floor, and her account, though brief, carried the density of a death march. As she spoke, Lafia seemed to contain emotions too dangerous to overflow. She sought no excuses or pity, only faced the facts with cruel lucidity. The past could not be changed, and fantasies of regret would only delay what needed to be done. The focus now was to recover what had been lost, as quickly as possible. For Belle, hearing that story was suffocating. The pain she carried was something he had never imagined, but also something he deeply recognized. Without time for hesitation, Lafia knelt before him, bathed in the pale moonlight. The image of the proud elf transformed into that of a knight in penitence, sincerely asking for help. By extending a directive letter from Sword, she made it clear that she was not only requesting support, but offering a bond of trust. Even without fully understanding the meaning of that gesture, Belle already knew what his response would be. The silence that followed was heavy, laden with everything Belle was still trying to assimilate. His mind was in chaos, mixing the chaotic memories of the past with the gravity of what Lafia had just revealed. The story of the 60th floor, even narrated coldly, left deep marks. It was too painful to imagine what she had faced, and yet there was no room to get lost in doubts or internal conflicts. Time was an enemy as real as any monster. Before him, Lafia remained kneeling, her posture firm despite the vulnerability of the gesture. The nobility that emanated from her did not come from her position or elven pride, but from her willingness to acknowledge her mistakes and ask for help without reservation. When he raised his face, his eyes reflected a silent determination, and the sword card laid out between them symbolized a pact that went beyond words. Belle reached out and accepted the card, feeling the weight of that decision settle in his chest. His answer came without hesitation. He would not only lend his strength, but also asked Lafia to trust in the same way. It was not an empty promise, but a commitment made there, under the moonlight, between two adventurers transformed by their own journeys. Thus, side by side, they decided to move forward together. Past mistakes and the fear of what awaited them did not matter. With the decision made, the path was set, to join forces and move forward to save Ace and the others, whatever the cost.